Hello and welcome to Vancouver Carpenter. So today I'm going to teach you guys how to make a slot box, or a nicer way of putting it is a homemade taper. Okay, so basically what we are making here is we are going to make a little contraption that you can pull a roll of tape from one end dry, coming out the other end wet with mud. So this is going to require a little bit of creativity on your part to find what you can use to make this thing. So in my case, I'm going to be using a mud box. So the first thing you're going to need is a sharp knife. Now you could also do this out of a bucket, but it might be a little bit harder to cut the bucket as easily. So the first thing I'm going to do is for the going in, I'm going to cut a small hole, and it's going to be the length of the paper tape. And it needs to be pretty darn close to the bottom. So it's just a tiny bit wider than the paper tape. And okay, I've got two little slits right there. And actually, that's big enough that that should actually be the front of it, where the mud's going to come out. So I'm actually going to make a smaller one for the other side. Okay, let's make sure that the tape can go through nicely. Yeah, it's a nice fit. And what we're going for here is, if I pull this tape out of here, I'm now going to be getting about 1/8 of an inch of mud on there. You know, a good 1/8 of an inch. So let's do the other side. Again, right in the middle of the box. And I'm going to keep it pretty low as well. So, same length, but I'm going to go a little bit narrower on this one, because you don't want the mud puking out on both sides. But it needs to be wide enough that there's not a bunch of friction, so it can't just be like the size of your razor. It's got to be a little bit bigger than that. So this one's a little bit smaller. Now let's see if the tape can slide through freely before getting started here. Okay, in one end, out the other. So if you're doing this with a cardboard box, this is going to be a one-time use just to get you through your project. But there we go, it's working. So the next thing that we need to do is, I am using this mud box right here, and you're going to want something heavy like this. So I'm using this mud box, and I'm actually just going to tape it to this other box. So you could use your box from your taping mud and put it onto one of the finished mud boxes. And now I'm just going to tape it with this ramboard tape. It's super sticky stuff, so it should be strong enough to hold it on. And this is going to be a bit messy. Keep this in mind. Okay. That's sturdy enough for what we're going to do. So next, I'm going to take this thing. So this could be anything. It could be a couple of chairs. It could be a bench. Could be anything. So now I'm going to take my sanding pole, and I'm going to put this through here. So it's going to go like this, and you want to make sure you have the tape the right way so that you're getting mud on the right side of this. So this is just going to go like that. And now, let's do a quick test. Actually, one thing you want to try and do is keep your paper tape tight at this point. So you actually need your roll pretty tight, because this is one of the drawbacks to this silly method, is if your tape starts to unspool, then it can actually become a mess and not work properly. Let's see. How's this going to work? Sounds awful, but it's going to work well. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly tape my sanding pole in place so that it doesn't slide around on me. And this ramboard tape is great stuff, because it's strong, but it tears super easy. Okay, there's that. So we are almost set here. And we're going to see how this is going to go. The next thing you're going to need is a vessel for your tape when you pull it out here. And your bucket should be lower than this line right here, ideally. Next, I've got a bucket of really runny taping mud. So it's quite runny. You're going to want to use all-purpose or taping mud. You're going to need it thinned down quite a lot so it's pourable, like so. And I've got this piece of drywall under here because I'm anticipating a bit of mess. So let's pour this in. So I've got a couple inches covering the tape now. I don't have too much in here. So would you guys believe that I just pulled out this whole bucket of tape before pressing record? Because that's what I did. But anyways, let's take a look at this tape. It's looking beautiful, isn't it? Like it's covered in a perfect 1/8 inch of mud. Nice and soupy. So I'm going to show you a real quick clip of me doing that. So when you finish the end of the tape, you want to make sure that you leave it laying over your bucket like this, or you might not find it. But let's try this again. So you need to be sure that you're pulling down a bit. Otherwise, you're going to pull it out and it's going to come out with no mud on the tape. So we don't want that. That's no good. So your vessel that you pull it into needs to be a little bit lower. And you just pull out gently and it comes out really nicely coated. And I may have actually made this side a bit big. I'll find out when I'm wiping the tape. You can see how nicely that comes out. And it'll just keep doing this until the level of mud comes down to your tape. So let's go tape something. So it's pretty dead simple. And I'm going to use an 8-inch knife to wipe out these tapes because I have a lot of mud under there. So I got my bucket. And I just simply get my mud side, obviously, stick it up there, line it up with the joint, give it a little slap. Oh yeah, there's too much mud under here. Keep that in mind, you guys. You can adjust how much mud you have by how big the slot is on the tape. And I've got this one pretty big. And you'll need a bucket to clean your hands. There we go. Pretty straightforward. Just wipe out your tapes. Yeah, too much mud. But better too much than not enough. It's just going to be a little messy, a little slower. And they wipe out really nice and easy. Let's do a ceiling flap. So if you're on stilts, you can strap the bucket to you with a tool belt. So I just pulled a belt off of a tool belt. I've got this tie wire rigged up on my bucket. Let's take a close look at that. And you can strap it to yourself, but I don't often do that unless I have a big job where I have to work off stilts. So in this case, I don't need to do that. I could just grab my tape. I'm going to go to the end here and just a little slap right in the center. You want to make sure that it's in the center. Yeah, too much mud, but again, not a big problem. So even an 1/8 might be adequate. And you don't have to clean your hands and wipe your tape off every time. These can sit for a long time. You'd be surprised. You can easily let them sit for almost 10 minutes sometimes. Done. So you can even do corners easily too. It's pretty simple. You just start at the top of your corner, put the tape in, and you can just actually find the crease while you're doing this. So let's get a close-up shot of that. So as you can see, you just place it in there, and the crease kind of shows up as you work. So you just keep pushing, it's off-center there, and then as soon as I center it, I can actually see the crease appear. So it's really quite effective. And when I get to the bottom, I just tear it at my best estimate for length. Sometimes I'm a tiny bit long or short, and that's okay. So I usually like to wipe these out with a 4-inch knife. Let's see how this goes though. It might be too much mud. So I just start in the middle. Nope, 4 inches still good. You can see it just sort of finds the crease. and you actually end up with a really good looking corner. So I don't usually do both sides in the middle like that. I'll just do one side at a time, starting in the middle, like so. So I've got the one side done, and now I'm going to go back to this one. And you want to make sure that you have a knife that has just slightly rounded corners. A brand new 4-inch knife, you should take some sandpaper and knock the edges down a little bit, because a brand new knife is going to tear these corners, especially when the tape is this wet and saturated with mud. Now let's take a look at that. So as you can see, it's a really nicely done corner. Really crisp, really well adhered, and you get really nice results finishing it one side at a time by hand with a 4 or 5, 6-inch knife. So when your pan's full, which in this case was quicker than usual because I had the mud a little bit too heavy, you can just dump it back in here and keep going. So you can easily pull out like 100 feet of tape at a time and just keep going. Also, one thing I might note is if you wind up like me, where you've made the mud too heavy on the tape, you can also take a piece of this ram board tape again and put it just a little bit down on the slot, and that's going to reduce the amount of mud that's coming out. So you can play with it a little bit too to get it just where you want it. But either way, this is a cheap, effective, and relatively simple tool to construct. So I hope you found this information useful, and I hope with this you're able to get some really well taped walls with your tape nicely stuck to the wall. So thanks for watching Vancouver Carpenter. If you want to support the channel, you can do all those subscribe, like thingies that everyone tells you to do, and now I seem to be telling you to do too. But again, thank you, and until the next video.